Using a USB microscope to film the subpixels, we confirmed that the Sony A95K is indeed carrying a QD-OLED panel from Samsung Display, as evidenced by the triangular arrangement of red, green, and blue subpixels. Captured using a JETI1511 spectroradiometer, the spectral power distribution of the Sony A95K was similar to that measured on other QD-OLED displays, with beautifully distinct red, green, and blue peaks, characterized by a slight hump along the blue valley. The use of quantum dot technology definitely contributed to an extremely impressive color gamut coverage, reaching almost 100% of DCI-P3 in UV terms, as well as more than 90% of Rec 2020. Just like last year's Sony A90J, the Bravia A95K QD-OLED is equipped with a heatsink, not one you would find inside a computer, but more a metallic heat dissipation layer behind the OLED panel, which allowed the A95K to clear away image retention in a quicker manner than other OLED televisions without heatsink. Here, I'm displaying a 10% window of peak white at full blast in HDR for around 10 seconds, and after switching to a full-field gray slide, you can see the rectangular afterglow disappearing faster on the Sony A95K than on the Samsung S95B, which isn't equipped with a heatsink. Peak brightness on our 55-inch A95K review unit measured below 900 nits fresh out of the box with 0 hours on the panel, but it turned out that our sample needed some run-in time and a few compensation cycles before reaching its full potential, unlike the Samsung S95B, which pretty much hit the ground running, exceeding 1000 nits of peak brightness without any run-in time required. Because I'm not used to waiting around, they call me 2-minute Theo after all, I reluctantly used the panel refresh function to force a major compensation cycle, after which peak brightness and EOTF stabilized, measuring 960 nits on a 10% window and 195 nits full fill. I also measured other window sizes in between, and it seems that despite implementing a heatsink, Sony remained quite conservative in driving the QD-OLED panel, without any further relaxation in ABL or automatic brightness limiter algorithm compared to the Samsung S95B, although generally it's still less aggressive than any WRGB OLED television I've tested to date. One thing to remember is that higher OLED brightness is always inversely proportional to OLED lifespan. Perhaps Sony's conservative approach will let the company become less stringent on other anti-screen burn measures such as auto-dimming. I plan to investigate this further in my full review, which hopefully will be ready in a few weeks' time. That's normally how long it takes for me from unboxing an OLED TV and running it in for at least 100 hours to let the organic material stabilize, to calibrating and measuring and watching actual content and doing side-by-side comparisons, not to mention filming and editing. So thanks a lot for your patience and understanding. Anyway, when installing the very heavy stand which acts as a counterweight, you can choose between the front position style or the back position style. As usual, I went for the front position. Fresh out of the box without any run-in time, shadow detail on our A95K review sample was severely crushed. This should resolve itself automatically after the television is used for some time with several compensation cycles under its belt. But the panel refresh I did earlier accelerated the alignment process, revealing that near black gamma was still slightly brighter than reference, similar to other Sony OLED televisions I've reviewed so far. Before making any premature judgment, I will run in my Bravia A95K review sample for at least 100 hours before checking if the overbrightened near black gamma could be dialed out through calibration. With game mode engaged, input lag measured 60 milliseconds at 60 frames per second, halving to 8 milliseconds at 120 frames per second. While these figures are slightly higher than the input lag measured on OLED televisions from class leaders LG and Samsung Electronics, we think they are fast and responsive enough for the vast majority of gamers out there. Given that at CES earlier this year, Samsung Display has advertised its QD-OLED TV panels to be compatible with 144Hz refresh rate, we tried sending a 1080p 144Hz video signal from our Leo Bodnar tester to the A95K, and somewhat surprisingly, the TV appeared to accept and display the 144Hz signal, though judging from the fluctuating input lag numbers, some frames might have been discarded. We will spend more time testing this in our full review. Due to the use of the same MediaTek MT5895 chipset on the Sony A95K, there's no change in its HDMI 2.1 configuration from 2021 Sony Bravia XR televisions, with 2 out of 4 HDMI inputs provided being HDMI 2.1, of which 1 is the ER port. The HDMI 2.1 bandwidth is spec'd at 48 gigabits per second, but FRL signaling and Dolby Vision remain mutually exclusive, so you won't be able to play games in 4K 120Hz Dolby Vision from the Xbox Series X. Selecting the enhanced VRR setting within the HDMI signal format submenu is necessary to activate VRR support with a VRR range of 48Hz to 120Hz. This video is sponsored by Box, the online technology store. Visit box.co.uk for the best deals on TVs, soundbars, and all your other technology needs. Otherwise, the clearness black frame insertion setting on the Sony A95K is only an on-off toggle, with low being off and high being on. Now, I know that QD-OLED panels from Samsung Display don't offer variable intensity 120Hz black frame insertion yet, but it does make me wonder if Sony wanted to unify the motion flow settings between its A95K QD-OLED and the step-down A90K and A80K WRGB OLEDs, eventually leading to the removal of 120Hz black frame insertion from WRGB OLED models. Nevertheless, with the designation of the Bravia A95K as a Master Series TV, it's clear that Sony has anointed QD-OLED rather than WRGB OLED as its flagship. In fact, the Japanese brand has previously put together a darkroom side-by-side comparison to demonstrate the advantages of QD-OLED over WRGB OLED, which I've covered in this video you can watch here.